Hey everyone, welcome back to Scripting Sales. I'm your host, Ryan Paris. I am the CEO and founder of Superhuman Prospecting, as well as the founder and principal at the H2H Method and the author of the soon to be published Trust Call. We have two very special guests today, and these two team members of mine work at Superhuman Prospecting. They are on our tech and project management side. So they don't interact with our prospects, our clients, as much as many other team members here, but they are certainly just as important to the process of delivering quality leads and appointments and making everything run smoothly here. And I'm bringing them on today to Scripting Sales because there has been a lot of conversation around Chat GPT and how it could potentially or has already changed the sales world. And especially when we're talking about scripting and conversation structure, there's been a lot of banter around how ChatGPT is changing that world. Is it eliminating certain roles? Is it creating certain roles? Is it advancing the sales profession? Is it taking it a step back? Especially when we're talking about cold calling and selling as it relates to the human to human aspect that is still very prevalent in the space. So, this is not my area of mastery, if I do say. However, these two have been on it like a hawk, and I think may result in some fun banter that they don't really get to get into too much on the job. So I'm hoping that we're gonna be able to sort of reveal some things, some thoughts about their interpretation of what's going to happen to the world and to the sales space in particular, and also see if we can kind of reach some new ideas or reach some new theories about how this will impact or not. So, welcome. We have Brian Ward and Jonah Howard. Brian is our senior systems analyst here. Brian, what exactly do you do here at Superhuman?
Well, a lot of the time I'm working on programming or automations, um, and really my job is if you boil it down, it's helping people do their job better. That's how I like to summarize it. So
I
through
agree.
process or technology, trying to make things more efficient for people.
Yeah, and I've seen that firsthand. You actually started here as what position?
I was a client SDR.
You started as a client SDR who also had a proclivity towards the tech side and saw some changes or improvements that could be made on our current system. And uh, in your own way, in your own regard, without us asking you, gave us a result that an idea that you had worked on that ended up changing the way that we do reporting for our clients. So that's amazing, and why you're here today and doing that very thing over and over and over again in different departments now, right?
Yep, yep, I love it.
That's amazing. And then we have Jonah Howard, our director of technology. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Very
Yeah. So, what
excited.
exactly do you do as a director of technology?
Well, simply put, I direct new technology development. So that means new software, new tools, and of course, I also help maintain existing systems that we have. So you combine innovation of new things and maintenance of current systems.
Awesome. And I also know that you are in a lot of meetings collaborating with different team members as well, about the potential use cases or ideas.
hmm
How do you see that collaboration as important to your role within our company and with vendors and other folks that you interact with?
Oh, collaboration is absolutely key in any type of development. I mean, if you don't know what your exact objective is of that development, it's just kind of pointless. Like you'll end up with some type of product that does something kind of relevant, maybe, but it really takes you being heavily involved in exactly what the use case needs to be for you to really
Mm.
understand exactly what to develop and exactly
Yeah.
what's needed. So that is a critical point of development.
Yeah. You're doing an excellent job communicating with teams and getting to where we need to go to have the systems running. Now, the one thing I want to preface here is, to have such a passionate and, uh, you know, a tech team such as you two plus our others that are so motivated and highly tech focused, but working with a company that evangelizes human to human, that creates a funny and interesting dynamic, right? Because on one side of the coin, you have someone like myself who is all about that human to human interaction. The whole team knows that I love in person, and the whole team knows that I love cold calling. But at the same time, it's not always feasible to only focus on just that cold conversation or only focus on in person, since we are in a digital world working remotely. There's so many systems, technology, and digitization of what we do. And so to have kind of those two separate, uh, fields and synergizing, we found to be super critical. But it still doesn't mean that we don't have our own opinions. And I'm hoping to get into that a little bit today, about the impact, how much will human to human be relevant in the near future, and how much more will technology be even more relevant than it is now. Which opens up my next question, which is basically around the topic today, around Chat GPT and selling. But let's start with a broad question. Both of you guys have been very in tune with what's going on. One of you in particular, which I love. I love the fact that you guys are on the what's the word, avant-garde of Chat GPT, really taking in the information as it's being presented and transmitting that to us and how it's going to impact. So, from a global sense, and either one of you can go first, how have you seen Chat GPT impacting the world as it stands right now?
I think it's changing everything. I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but I think this technology has applications in almost every single industry imaginable. I've had a hard time finding an industry that this doesn't have some kind of application in. Large language models and natural language interpretation helps in so many areas. And for the past maybe a decade or two, we saw advances in technology like cell phones. You could say cell phone and maybe social media, but nothing with artificial intelligence has changed as fast as the past couple of years with GPT and large language models.
And so you had said it sounds like you put some thought into this too, that ChatGPT is, more is impacting every industry. What industries would you say that ChatGPT will impact the most compared to what would be impacted the least, if you have that?
Well, the two main applications and industries I can immediately think of are content creation. So content writers who either write blogs, articles, um, books like yourself, writing, helping people write content like that, and programmers. So people like us,
Hmm. Okay.
we
I
program
was wondering.
and code a lot, and GPT has some incredible interpretation with programming and code.
Interesting. And what about you, Jonah? Where do you see ChatGPT impacting the world? Is it similar to Brian in those spaces, or do you see it a little bit differently?
Definitely very similar. I think any job that relies heavily on communication, especially in a written form, soon as it's continuing to
Yeah.
develop, we're getting into audio communication it's capable of doing at more and more convincing levels, right? But in terms of written words, it's already extremely good at forming cohesive sentences, correct grammar. So any job that relies just significantly on writing words is impacted. I think, some of the hardest things GPT has to get to is decision making. So jobs that heavily rely around ability to take in many, many different inputs and interpret what the priority should be and evaluate the decision. That's
Hmm.
going to be difficult for it. And there are
Okay.
a couple other things, physical labor, that type of thing, like will eventually come, and so will decision making. But for now, anything that's strictly kind of communication and like intro to relationship building, that can be really automated heavily by ChatGPT.
And that kind of goes to my next question, which is, how about the sales world? We see it in a couple different applications. I've heard it in, before we transition over here, I've heard about some of my teacher friends, you know, developing their curriculum for a day or a week or a quarter using Chat GPT. And they said they've saved themselves hours and hours, or editing, uh, some basic homework they were able to do. And so I thought that was really unique or different that I haven't heard because that's not really my world. So I thought, it seems like it is very pervasive. And like you said, anything content written, you know, in a digital format is certainly impacted. So how about the sales world? Let's go there. How is it? How would you say that it's helping or hurting? How is it helping? How is it hurting the sales world in particular? Cold calling, cold email, sales presentations, sales process, sales ops, sales tech.
Hmm. Well, it definitely has been impacting all of those. We can get into how it's impacting cold calling in a little bit here, but really the main thing that I notice is impacting cold emailing. I don't know how many of you also get this, but I get at least 5 emails probably a week that are very clearly written by ChatGPT, and they're usually scraping some information of mine off of LinkedIn or something like that, and they write a decently cohesive email, relating all this different information it has on me and saying, Jonah, we'd like to reach out and meet you or something like that. So that's the immediate impact I see. I'm like, I read these emails and it's like, I don't think a human wrote this.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
let's
either
start there. What? Go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
it a lot of the time with those marketing emails that I've noticed is it does correctly take the information that they've provided it about you and incorporate it into their message, but the message is almost too natural. It's sort of noticeable that a human didn't write this because it's trying to fit into some trope or some theme.
Right.
So
Pattern.
you can tell the pattern, and it's like, I don't think a human actually wrote this. It doesn't sound like a person is talking to me. It sounds like a theme that's been applied onto some information.
Right. Like maybe it was authentic 10 years ago if you were the first person to say it, but now it's been said 1,000 times and we're saying it once again. And it's like, shouldn't you be more aware of kind of how we speak in today's world?
Right, right. It can be
Maybe.
either too formal or
Nomenclature.
too informal. Um, yeah,
Interesting. Well, I actually have some comments about that a little bit later, about that specific topic, how we know it's chat gpt. How is it helping them? It sounds like those are maybe some things that could hurt because you as being on the potential customer side, Jonah, and Brian, you noticing some of these things, how is that potentially hurtful? Or we said how it's hurtful, how is it helpful? Because I've seen a lot on LinkedIn about using ChatGPT and AI to create automation. So what do you guys see that as helpful? What is it that we can use to benefit selling?
Mhm. Absolutely helpful in many ways. I think probably the most immediate way for us now is in terms of time saving. They're just straight up conversations or long form typing or written examples or things like that, where really ChatGPT can do a great job in filling in sections of writing or even just generating whole pieces of content, which does make it substantially easier for the people using ChatGPT to get that type of content out there. But of course, that does kind of lead to a discussion about, in my head, does that devalue that type of writing, right? If ChatGPT can just push it everywhere all the time, now is when you read someone's 6-page article, well, how much of that was actually them, or did they pay 20 cents in GPT tokens to have it generated?
Mm. And I remember seeing this early when ChatGPT came out, which is, hey, I didn't use it to send my emails, but I used it to get myself started, and I was able to edit it to make it my own. Well, if everyone's doing that, then the structure is feasibly going to be very similar with slightly changed words here and there, and maybe that pattern will be intuitively identified by the reader. So, but like you said, it's a time saver. It gives you ideas, and we've certainly used it in some of our internal meetings. Like we've said, hey, how do we say this, or what should we say? And boom, someone used ChatGPT, and it was a whole new perspective. And I was not none of us were thinking it, and we actually ended up using something very similar. So it does kind of, it's like an idea generator almost. It seems like it prompts and accelerates the kind of like word bank that you have available to then pick apart and make your own as you see the words come up. Would you say that's accurate? Was that helpful from what you guys have seen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really good for content generators. So if your goal is to just put as much content out there as possible, then like that person you said, Jonah, who wrote a 6-page article, if they wrote a single paragraph and had it generate the rest of the pages, you could do that. You get a lot of content out of that, and it's based on your initial paragraph. Um, you have to strike a balance between your goals and your expectations with GPT. So it can generate lots of content, but it might not follow your intention if all you give it is a single paragraph. Now it's going to follow it generally well, but like you said with the interpretation, if we wanted to interpret some content that we already have, it's very good at that. It can generate variations of like a sentence you give it, or a paragraph or an email that you've written. It can give you different variations and different ideas from that.
And also how well you have trained it and
Mm,
asked the right questions
right.
to get what you want, which we will talk about. Speaking of that, let's transition a little bit. We would like to present a segment today, which is Chat GPT cold call script versus human cold call script. So, what we've done is we have brought Brian and Jonah on to help us write a cold call script. Since that is the general topic of this podcast, we thought that with the advent of ChatGPT, we would see how it compares to the scripts that we write. It's super relevant and certainly a conversation we're going to continue. But I have not really made a cold call script from ChatGPT. And I know that Brian and Jonah have played around with it quite a bit. And so I thought what we could do is a segment where we would use the same content to write that we would write a cold call script for Superhuman Prospecting and give that to ChatGPT with the same goals and objectives to see what it comes up with and compare them. So we're talking about all this stuff and how it can make it a change, but let's see how it actually does. I have no idea what this is going to sound like or what this is going to look like. So I'm very curious. So on our screen over here, we have Brian and Jonah ready for the prompts. So what we've done is in our script forms that we send to our clients, we have different questions. So we have, what is a general description of what you do? What are some pain points? What are the features, benefits, accolades? And then we have those in chunks and then use that information for different parts of the script and use that as kind of ingredients that make it to a recipe and then a final baked cake. And that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to do the same thing with ChatGPT. So Brian has collected some of the same criteria that we have written our human to human cold call scripts with, and we're going to see what ChatGPT does. So Brian, you ready?
Yep. Yeah. So I've written the
Okay.
prompt initially with instructions telling GPT
Okay.
to write a human to human cold call script, cold call sales script for the following company based on their form responses and the H to H methodology. So then I've provided it some of our H to H content. It's a summary of what H to H is and um, the script responses from that example client, and then an example script that it can use. So
Whew.
this is a very
Okay.
large prompt. You might say
Okay.
it has a
So
lot of information.
okay, so you've already inputted this into ChatGPT's prompt input area, and you all you have to do is say send message, and it will calculate. Like it's ready to go. Correct?
Yep. If you're
Okay.
ready.
So can you give us any example before you do that, or any insight as to the the way in which the method in which you inputted this information? Because there's a lot. So how did you know to say write a human script, and then you have looks like you have a couple different kind of I don't know what those official apostrophes
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, are,
So
and then
if
you
you're
have some things. So share with us what that means. Share with us what those things are, and what that stuff's going to do.
sure. Yeah. So initially, what ChatGPT is very good for is responding to you with responding to you based on instructions. So the first thing that it reads should be an instruction. So that's what we've told it initially to do. And I've referenced the form responses and H to H methodology in the instruction. So what comes after that is a tilde tilde tilde, and it that in code basically that tells it this is a code block. So it's just like a chunk, um, and this first chunk is tilde 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 the H to H information, and then we have three different chunks like that. So it's H to H, the actual company information, and then the example script at the bottom. So once we start this, it's gonna read those instructions and the content and do its best, and we'll see what it comes up with.
Oh man. Okay. So this is great because you've also told it about the H to H method, which is just being released. And I don't know if ChatGPT has that in its original database. So you are teaching it. So that was going to be like my uh, secret weapon with ours
Mhm.
to say, hey, where ours is going to be better because of this. But you are actually teaching it H to H on the fly.
Right? Yeah, that's
This
part
is
of
a
our
true test
that's part of
now.
our
Yeah.
conversation. Is going to be training how you can train that, how you can provide information if it doesn't already have it. Um, so
Okay. So you have brought it to a new level. I love it for this podcast, but I'm super nervous about how good it's going to be because
well,
I thought I had you guys beat, and
if
now we're really putting H to H and human script writing to the test.
if it has this information and doesn't do well based on your interpretation, then GPT's failed. If it has this information and does well based on your opinion, then take that as you will.
That
But we'll see how it does.
yeah, take that as yeah. Then we have a different conversation on our hands. Okay, let's
Here
do
we
it.
go.
3, 2, 1. Send message.
All right. So
Let's
that
see
is a
it's
lot of
rolling.
information. It might break, but it looks like it's taking
Okay.
it all in. Oh, the message was too long.
Oh, was
um,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
So too much
So what is it?
information.
What does that mean? Oh, it was. Okay. All right. So test one, failure to launch.
Yep.
Failure to
So
launch. Okay. Bringing
let
it
me
back
remove some
to
information.
to SpaceX launch pad. So can you? What's up?
I was just gonna say, Brian, I sent you another prompt. If we want to test a non-human to human information prompt, just to see kind of a general cold call script generation for our company, I just sent you that, and then we can use that to test and compare to ours.
Okay, so let's do that. So you can trim down some of that and try again,
Yeah, I'll just
Brian,
make a
or
new chat for this prompt Jonah's
okay.
provided. We'll just see
Oh,
what it
okay.
does with a blank chat because that one failed.
Okay, so let's go up. Let's go up to the. Okay, so you just inputted it. All right. So it says write a cold call script for Superhuman Prospecting for a team of sales prospecting professionals built to support your in-house sales team. We focus on quality by hiring experienced SDRs using a tested and thorough process. Every cold caller is trained and certified in the HH sales script method. To ensure consistently and quality, we create custom outbound prospecting campaigns focused on providing quality leads, opportunities, and sales appointments. Uh, okay, more information, blah, blah, blah. Spend less time recruiting, training, and managing sales development reps and more time growing your business. Our done for you cold call service provides a team of US based cold callers focused more on having quality conversations than just making dials. We specialize in custom scripts, strategies using our proprietary method. The method was developed after years of sales prospecting research, experience, and data gathered from hundreds of thousands of calls. Boom. Okay, I like that. So, um, a lot of the same features, benefits, of things. We didn't necessarily tell it accolades, but that's okay. We will consider that in the comparison when we judge. But it's developed. It's ready. It
Yep.
looks like in that time it baked it up.
Yep. It
Training
wrote
for
out
other.
basically a transcript of how that conversation would go. Um, so I can start off if you want to read the responses like you're a prospect. And I can
Okay.
act like the client SDR.
You act like the client SDR. I'll act like the prospect. I'm going to give ChatGPT the hardest time possible. Just be ready.
All
Just
right.
kidding.
So
Let's go.
just so you're aware, I'm not this bad as a client SDR, but hi, this is Brian. I'm from Superhuman Prospecting. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Who is this, and what is superhuman prospecting?
Great to hear that. I'm calling from Superhuman Prospecting, a B2B business development company. We specialize in providing outsourced cold calling and lead generation services. Our team of experienced sales prospecting professionals is dedicated to supporting your in house sales team and helping you grow your business. At Superhuman Prospecting, we understand the challenge businesses face when it comes to recruiting, training, and managing sales development reps. That's why we offer a unique SDR as a service solution, allowing you to focus on growing your business while we take care of your cold calling and lead generation process.
Hmm, interesting.
So it took the information that Jonah provided and turned it into a conversation. Now,
Well, it looks like
if that was
the
an
good
opening,
information. It looks like it turned it into a monologue.
yeah, it did. That's not much
It
of a conversation.
is. It turned it into a speech contest. I love how it says response, and then it says you, and has a paragraph, and then it says after that paragraph's over, it says you again, and then it says you.
So if we
Okay,
if
well,
we
to be
wanted it to
fair,
be
all
more
right.
of a transcript, you could tell it in a follow up prompt. You could say write the transcript of a conversation where this would apply.
So that's fair. So okay, so let's at the very end, let's read that. It says, would you be available for a what does that say? For a quick what? Quick call this week to discuss. Okay. So it basically it completed the objective, right? It asked to set an appointment, which I don't know if we told it to do that. So how about what if we okay, that's fair. Okay, so to give ChatGPT credit, we didn't explicitly say that it needs to be more conversational or it needs to provide questions throughout the conversation, correct?
Right. It was literally just told write a cold call script, which is very open ended.
Which is very open ended. And I imagine if you said using the H to H method, it probably wouldn't, you know, it probably wouldn't do anything because it doesn't know that yet. So I guess you have to, ask some question, tell it to ask some questions. So could you do the same thing except like what would you do, Brian, to change it using the same data about Superhuman?
Yeah, so the cool thing about ChatGPT is we can give it a prompt and it gives us this response, but then we can provide follow up instructions or follow up information. So what I've told it at the bottom here is to write a transcript of a phone call conversation with a prospect, which is sort of what we want to get. I could also include that human to human aspect. It wouldn't know all of the content that you've written, of course, but it could interpret that in a way to hopefully be more human natural in its conversation. If you'd want me to include the human to human tag.
Yeah, you want to
Okay.
give it? Let's give it a shot. Write a transcript of a phone call conversation with a prospect in a human to human conversation style. Is that what you would say? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll go with style. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to say there, but we'll see what this does now. It should still be like, of course, a conversation. Good morning, this is Jane. Okay, Jane came out of nowhere. Jane from Superhuman Prospecting. How are you today? Prospect says, "Hi, Jane. I'm doing well, thank you. How can I help you?" That's great to hear. I'm calling to introduce you to Superhuman Prospecting, a B2B business development company. And it tells them what we specialize in, what our goals are, and it's still producing that transcript at the bottom. So it's giving us a long conversation here. So it looks like our agent who is calling the prospect is just word dumping um, and providing lots of information. I'm not sure if a prospect would stick around for quite that long to, to hear 4 paragraphs of content.
Could you tell it to write a cold call script in a human to human style, asking follow up questions after providing product information, correct value, and or ad. Yeah, guess I'll have to fix that ad and product information.
Hi, this is Mark from Superhuman Prospecting. How are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm
What can I do for
well.
you?
Yeah. Ooh, this is good. So what? Okay, so what was the? I'll be the prospect again.
Okay,
So I'm doing well, thank you. What can I do for you?
I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to follow up on our previous conversation and provide you with more information about how Superhuman Prospecting can support your business development efforts. We offer outsourced cold calling and lead generation services, focusing on quality conversations rather than just making dials. Our team of experienced SDRs is trained in our human to human sales script methodology, ensuring consistency and effectiveness in every interaction.
And that sounds interesting. How exactly can you help us generate leads?
Great question. At Superhuman Prospecting, we create custom outbound prospecting campaigns tailored for your specific needs and qualifications. We take the time to understand your ideal target audience and craft personalized scripts and strategies to engage with them effectively. Our goal is to provide you with quality leads, opportunities, and sales appointments that align with your business goals. Now, I'm curious, what is your current lead generation process and how's it working for you? Are you finding it challenging to generate quality leads consistently?
Well, it's been a bit of a struggle. We've tried various methods, but it's difficult to find leads that are a good fit for our business.
I completely understand. Lead generation can be a complex and time consuming process. That's where our expertise comes in. By outsourcing your cold calling and lead generation to Superhuman Prospecting, you can save time and resources, allowing you to focus on other critical aspects of your business. Can you tell me more about the specific challenges you've faced with your lead generation efforts? Are there any particular industries or decision makers you're targeting?
We primarily target decision makers in the healthcare industry. One of our challenges is getting through to the right people and having meaningful conversations.
I see.
Ooh.
Targeting decision makers in the healthcare industry can be challenging, given their busy schedules and the competitive nature of the industry. Our team of experienced SDRs has extensive experience with B2B prospecting, including healthcare. We know how to navigate the complexities of reaching decision makers and engaging them in meaningful conversations. With that in mind, what would success look like for you in terms of lead generation? Are there any specific goals you'd like to achieve?
Our main goal really is to increase the number of qualified leads and ultimately close more sales. We're looking for quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity
Wow.
is definitely a smart approach. Our focus on quality conversations aligns perfectly with your goals. By implementing our customized outbound prospecting campaigns, we can help you generate a consistent stream of highly qualified leads and opportunities. Our SDRs will engage in meaningful conversations with decision makers, ensuring that you connect with the right people who have the genuine interest in your offerings. Based on our conversation, it seems like our services would be a good fit for your lead generation needs. Would you be open to scheduling a discovery call to discuss your requirements in more detail and explore how SHP can specifically support your business?
Yes, that sounds like a good next step. I'd like to learn more about how you can help us. And scene. Okay, I think that is closer to our winner.
Hmm.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. I would
What
have
is that,
liked
Jonah?
I would have liked to see it ask for an email. Actually, I think it does. Oh yeah, it does. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I'll send you an email shortly. So that's where you would get additional contact information and actually set up the appointment.
Man, that was good. Okay, so I think those questions. I think what was probably the most powerful to me were the questions that were being asked by you, and I think that those are really good questions. Obviously the responses that I had as the prospect were, you know, fit right to the T on how you would want someone to respond.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were questions that I would want to take from here and probably have our team ask in the discovery questions there if we haven't added them already. I forget which one was really good, but just asking about what you're currently doing, or let's see, what would success look like for you? What are specific challenges that you're facing? Those are really solid questions that obviously ChatGPT has seen has grabbed that from some information source that's got to be credible. And I guess where would they grab that from? Like, how do they know to answer that? Like, where is this AI brain taking this knowledge from?
Well, that's a very good question. It's been trained on basically internet information, so a vast array of human written content across the internet that includes everything from science to technology to sales and scripting to healthcare. Every possible human written content you could imagine has been fed into this thing up to I believe like September of 2021. That's why it doesn't currently have up to date information. So it doesn't really know about your H to H book yet, but I'm sure in the future it will.
Yeah, which, hey, as long as I got there first, I'm okay.
There you go.
All right. So let's go over to our. Let's just go quickly. I'm gonna open up. I don't know. Do you have access to the Clark Kent script? If you could open that up and just show us on your screen since you're there, and we'll just walk through quickly for the audience to hear what we have right now. And we're not going to go through the whole thing because that was quite long, but I'd like to just get a feel after listening to reading ChatGPT what ours would sound like. And obviously this isn't a transcription, right? Like it's this is a uh, essentially just from the prospect side only. Did you get that link? Are you able to open that? I'm not sure if it went through there on Google Meet.
Yeah, you should see that. See the script
Okay.
now.
Okay. So if you can, please scroll down and we can show the starting at the quick prop of the consultative format. And if you are you, there we go. And what we'll do is just kind of walk through. And now that you've got that fresh in your mind, using some similar information. Now, obviously, it's not going to all be the same, but if you can scroll down to the CCF decision maker portion, and we'll just start at that point because I think it'll give us a little bit of, you know, right to the point here about it. So, yeah, using our CCF, which is the consultative conversation framework, essentially what we're doing is talking about. Are you having some hard time? If you're having technical difficulties, I can open up my screen. Would that be better?
Yeah, it's just having a hard time loading.
Oh, okay. So I'll share mine. That's fine. And so what I'm going to do is just read it through using our consultative, which using our H to H method, there's 4 components. There's a quick prop, which is an opening statement, a hone in, which is a specific type of discovery question that we call a balance question. There's a bridge statement based upon if they say yes or no, a calling prop, and then discovery questions, and then a next step. So what we have here is, I can read it. Hi, my name is Ryan with Superhuman Prospecting. We provide outsourced cold calling and appointment setting to companies across the United States to help them generate more leads for their sales pipeline. Are you using an outsourced lead gen solution currently to help continue your growth, or have you considered it in the past? So, going back to our Chat GPT beginning, what was the opening question? Do you remember, Brian? Or do you guys have that? What was the opening question?
That the
It said,
the
hey,
agent asked.
yeah, the first question from the SDR based on ChatGPT's script.
Um, what is your current lead generation process, and how is it working for you? Are you finding it challenging to generate quality leads?
Okay. So, hey, that is, first of all, it's a very solid discovery question. So, kudos to ChatGPT. I think that's pretty good. How would you guys compare ChatGPT to this right here? What's your first thought? I mean, I know you guys are in the tech side, so I'm just looking at it strictly from your perspective on ChatGPT. Gut reaction.
Gut reaction, they're pretty similar. I kind of like the brevity of the Clark Kent script better. I think that's maybe one of the bigger differences between both the scripts to me is the ChatGPT one is very very long and drawn out, right? Like if you're having that conversation with someone in reality, they're probably not sticking around wanting to hear your large paragraphs.
True. True. And that's fair. And I think that's something that we've found, which is something interesting to note, right? For a future conversation about the efficacy of this script. And, it's only as good as, I've heard something about ChatGPT, it's only as good as the prompts that you write it. So are there ways to refine it? Are there ways to make it better? All right. So whether or not they say yes or no to our question, we say, so the way it works is we help companies generate leads and appointments to their sales pipeline by making outbound calls and emails to their prospects through campaigns on a month to month basis. And typically, essentially at that point, if we've heard some information from the prospect, we can cater the conversation going forward to differentiating feature, tangible benefit, outstanding accolade, if they have said something to cue us. And then right after that, we'll say a discovery question. And that's also based upon, the response of the prospect. So what are you doing currently to generate more leads? Have you heard about outsourced call teams? Have you used them? We could even add, what are the challenges? And so I think the difference with the H to H is instead of, asking some of those questions early on, we're asking them later in the conversation. So those questions are great that I think that ChatGPT wrote. It's just, I think a little bit, according to our method, what we found a little bit later, but still they included them. And then after that, it's the reason I'm calling is to see if you'd be available for a call, which is very similar. So let's do this. How would you rank ChatGPT on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being the worst, 10 being the best.
I'm putting it at a solid seven or eight. I think if you have no human to human training and you know nothing about the human to human methodology, and you just want a semi-effective idea of of how a sales conversation should go, that would be that. But with human to human, you do want to build some rapport with the prospect instead of just giving them as much information as possible about what your service is, like ChatGPT did. You do want to have more of a conversation with the prospect and get feedback from them to see if it's a good fit.
Which once we prompted ChatGPT, it did begin to give us some of that. I
Right.
feel like we barely scratched the surface, but you see the difference from our first prompt to our second. So, what do you think it is that you wrote in a human to human style? What is it that makes a GPT script human? What is the difference? Would you say?
I think it might be trying to be more personal. So, like I said, it did do like an information dump, but with that conversation, it was trying to be more personal with the questions. Not personal in like a business or personal sense, but just
Like more individual.
yeah.
Or individual? So, give any example, and I'm putting you on the spot with this, but what are examples of more personal, individual versus not? If you were just to tell ChatGPT without being human to human or personal, how what makes something more personal? I guess is my question.
I mean, I think the discovery questions it gave are actually pretty good examples of that. Where instead of just saying we do this, right? It's now like, okay, how are you doing this? So it really directs them and forces them to have a, their own mind has to process, where am I in relative to this company? Am I in this field? Do I need these services? It kind of prompts them to think about themselves instead of just hearing about your company.
Yeah. So it feels it's almost the way it makes the prospect feel. It sounds like maybe it feels as if it's more relevant or it's directed towards them specifically
Right.
in some way. So why is it? What do you think about training them? My next question is, why is it important to train? And you kind of answered it, but to kind of label some of that, why is it important to train ChatGPT?
There are a few different ways you can train it. There's this relatively simple method that we used, which was just feeding the information in a code block format, so it immediately gets that context and that content that you intend it to have. So like you're kind of programming the brain with your initial message. But the slightly more advanced version is called embeddings. So if you have your entire like H2H book as a PDF document, you could embed that into the ChatGPT API, and it would have that preloaded in its brain, basically. So it would have the full context of your book, and then you prompt it and ask for a response, and it would have that full content instead of us hitting our hitting our chat input limit that we initially did.
Interesting. So this might mean I immediately thought we might have to have an SHP tech team scripting sales podcast 2.0 because when the book comes out, we will have a PDF version for you to input. Do you think that would change that script quite a
Oh yeah,
bit?
yeah. If it had your entire book as its brain, then it could probably do some good stuff with that.
Do some
Mhm.
damage. We'd be done for.
I mean, even without the book, currently, if we feed it just say an example of one of our scripts and we say, here's this company's value, right? Here's Superhuman and what they do. Here's an example script format that we'd like you to follow. It'll generate a script following that general format. So it can kind of mimic H to H in structure already. If you were to give it the whole actual book, it might be able to actually get a deeper understanding of why you do what transition and why you'd ask this question into this prompt. And it would probably do a better job of developing it.
Well, you guys are definitely coming back for 2.0. I can see this happening. That's great. Uh, so great for the podcast. Who knows if it's great for our company? So let me ask you this question: do you think this is starting to change it? Do you think that ChatGPT will take over jobs of writers? That's a general question. That's pretty big too.
I think it can take over those writing jobs, um, but I think there will be a natural reaction to that. I think if all of the content that you see for blogs and articles are suddenly written, well, I mean, they already lots of them already are being either edited or completely written by GPT. Um, if people if people notice it, if it doesn't fit in, or if information is wrong, then it instantly becomes untrustworthy. Lots of articles and publications become untrustworthy. Um, you also have to consider, did did someone prompt this article, and did they not even read it? Did they just publish it immediately? You might run into completely false information, like we've seen with ChatGPT. It Certain models do like to hallucinate, um, and just come up with information. So you might run into that, and then have a natural reaction from readers.
Almost a, like a bug in it in some way. So then that, we're winding down here, but it kind of gives me a couple more questions, which is, what do you think the limitations of ChatGPT are, and maybe kind of as it relates to the sales world, but in general, general question, but kind of within that, from that perspective.
Well, it's always immediately limited by the ability of the human who prompted it to give it the correct goal, right? Like when we said write a cold call script, it had to assume what our endpoint was. It just said, okay, they kind of generally look like this, right? So if the human doesn't specify what's the goal, what's the point, what's the purpose, what the priorities are, it's just kind of going to generate something. So it's always limited by the human interacting with it, at least so far.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's
So
currently a very dependent artificial agent. It does depend very much on the human that's prompting it. We have seen some advances in independent agency. There's some experiments with something called Auto GPT, where it basically prompts itself and has it has it reflect on its actions. So that's sort of in development at the moment.
yeah, that seems to be a bit of a self-sustaining type of chat gpt in a lot of ways, which gives me the final question is, will chat gpt be able to replace cold callers?
Now, I've
And if,
seen
yeah,
I've seen some concerning advancements. You could say concerning advancements from Google, and this was like 5 years ago or more. They they introduced a call agent that, on behalf of a client, called a salon, and with natural language and a natural voice, set up an appointment for that client at the salon. And the person on the other end didn't know that it wasn't a human. And that was 5 years ago. That was from Google. I haven't seen anything about that here recently, but with a chat GPT brain, it could do some incredible things, I would think. um, but that's you still run into the problem of trust. If you have an agent that's doing that, and it's following human to human protocol, the human methodology, and sets up an appointment with someone, and they call it back, I don't know Yeah, you're not talking to a real person. So I don't know what kind of rapport you'd be able to build with a robot.
So
Right.
it's interesting that you say that. Were you gonna say something there, John?
I was just going to say, I mean, imagine you call it back and it forgot your whole conversation. It didn't store it in its contextual brain, and it just goes, hi, I'm Jeff, and it doesn't know who you are.
Yeah,
Be like,
it might be so focused on selling you something or or working for whatever business it's programmed for, that any personal conversation might just like go back to being a business conversation. So I think it might be difficult to build any personal rapport with that agent.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's interesting that you say that example with the salon sounded natural to you know the receiver, and they were able to set an appointment, and no one knew. You know, but I can see how that is more mechanical. It's the equivalent of having maybe some basic emails being sent via ChatGPT and really no one knowing.
Right. Right. It
At
was a
what
it was a
point?
very
Right.
simple kind of situation. So the person at the salon is expecting someone to set up an appointment. So it that path of the
Correct.
conversation is really solid. Like you're not going to get
Correct.
something wild that the robot can't handle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have received calls from robots, and I've gone down a couple exchanges before I did realize it. So it's there. It's interesting, I think, on a cold call though. You say at some point there's a rapport building and it would have nothing to base itself off of. And a cold call specifically, that seems more of a customer service scheduling call. In a cold call specifically, there seems to be two things in my mind, and I'm curious what you think about this. And if there are advancements, I would love to hear this because I need to know this. One thing I think people do is they they want to kind of they want to regulate because of fear, and not because you know they're not willing to change. They just think it shouldn't be because jobs will go away. Well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's almost kind of a second mother nature, if you will. So I like to welcome that challenge. My question is, when we're on these if we're on a call with another human, one of the biggest things that we do in cold calling is we adapt to the market. And so I always tell our clients a script never ends the way that it starts, because you're constantly listening to what they have to say. And every week, our account managers are adjusting the message somehow and retraining the team. So, how do you think, will ChatGPT be able to take that information on, hey, if they said this question in a certain way, then and the person said no, then would they know to adjust it to try and get a yes? Do you follow what I'm saying? Like if I say, do you have an information tech partner currently, or have you considered it? Or if I said, you know, do you have an IT company right now that you're working with currently? And they say, yes, click. How would I know to change that to, okay, well, I think what's happening here is IT is a bit of too much of a pattern that they're used to hearing. And I need to change that up and say, hey, we're an information tech company. Or,
mm-hmm.
and just that word I knew based upon my awareness of their tone, the way they hung up, when they hung up, and change that. Would ChatGPT know to make those kind of changes?
Right. AI at some point could. The thing with AI is that it's considered somewhat of a black box, and that for a human, when you think about, I mean, human brains kind of do the same thing, but it's like you interpret a bunch of data and you something in there clicks with you determine as a decision to then make a different pathway in the conversation, right? And with AI, it takes in a huge amount of data and it determines what its brain is, right? That's like what people consider like the black box, and the AI is like you don't know how it decides what comes out next, but it learned through neural networks what when it should change the conversation and how it should change that conversation. And so I think with enough data, you would definitely get an AI that would interpret like, okay, in hundreds of examples or millions of examples, when someone says this, 80% of the time it ends up in this conversation path, which does not lead me to my goal. So then it'll learn to kind of tweak the pathways to get closer to the highest success rate of whatever its goal is to set an appointment or something like that. Yeah, it definitely can conversationally get there, but it will have a real hard time maintaining that human element, which is just that I am just someone with my own opinions, and you are someone with your own opinions, and maybe we can relate to liking the same football team, right? Like something like that is actually going probably in my mind going to be the harder part for the AI. Like it could lie about it, be like, "Oh, you like the Eagles? I like the Eagles." It could do something like that. Um,
You know, no, that's good. I was gonna say that Brian said the ultimate thing is this trust. And that's actually the purpose of what we say a cold call is with our method. And it's trust in the product, the process, but one very key element that we're talking about here, which is the person. So the question is, will it's almost as if, unless, and I've heard this, that there would be some regulation, some opt in regulation around the the phone call aspect to AI, where the robot would have to ask permission, because otherwise it's emulating a human being, which is essentially a lie just before they even start talking.
I,
Wouldn't
I,
that
I
be,
think it
wouldn't that be true?
I think it would be good for that regulation, in the long run, if people know that the conversation that they're about to have with someone on the phone turns out is actually a robot, and the robot itself has to identify itself like that. I think that would be good, but also bad in the sense that if somebody hears that, you immediately lose trust because I don't want to talk to a robot. I want to talk to a real person. So the whole use of that goes out the window. Um, instead of having completely independent agents like that, where you have a robot on the other end of the phone call that that is trying to trick you and make you believe it's a human. I think the more realistic application of this natural language interpretation is probably sentiment analysis live on a phone call. So you will have, I think there will always be a need for a human as the client SDR. I don't think there will be people who try to replace SDRs with these robot agents, but I think in the end, with trust, you're going to need a human. But I think the application is that the robot could listen into that conversation and give the SDR tips and suggestions on what to do next based on the conversation.
Interesting. Well, that I think is a great place to wind this down. It's amazing insight from both of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, that was great. That question's got me thinking. It's got me kind of the wheels spinning, because you know it seems as though it's going to be able to do anything we tell it to. But going back to that question about trust and the prospect being aware of that is the kind of philosophical question of whether it's a viable channel without, and the faster that they can add the regulation, the faster that it might work. Because it's like, all right, well, I know and it was the same thing we do. It's like, hey, this is a sales call. Okay, now I trust what this is all about. Go ahead. Right? Versus, hey, if you, hey, are you happy right now with your current service? Are you, what if I told you that I could save you $1 million this year? It's like, well, what's your shtick here? What are you trying to get across? Because I have no idea what you're offering me. I don't know what I'm saying yes or no to. It's the same thing. Hey, listen, this is a sales call. This is what we do. We want to see if this would be a good fit. It's like, oh, okay. Well, it's the same thing with a robot. Same idea. So it's a
Yeah,
great point.
that's a really good point. One of the most realistic movie interpretations of an AI agent that I've seen is probably Her. I don't know if you've seen Her.
I have not,
So that
but I've seen Ex Machina. I don't know if that's similar,
okay.
but continue.
So yeah, sort of similar. The AI in Her is an operating system that is supposed to be really personal with the person it's talking to, and it's absolutely a like natural language conversation. Um, but that's a really good point that you bring up, that we do tell the prospect up front, yeah, this is a sales call, because we want to be honest and we don't want to lead them along on some winding kind of trick. So if the robot sounds completely human and says, hey, you know what, to be honest, I'm a robot, but this is also a sales call, and it sounds just like a
Oh,
human saying that'd be interesting. That might build trust with the business. I don't know. It's a very very interesting concept.
that's exactly. It's a great thought. Guys, thank you so much for coming on Scripting Sales Podcast. I really appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you guys. And this will be available on all channels. And hopefully we'll see you guys in ChatGPT 2.0.